So we're now 11 months into the declared COVID-19 emergency in Colorado. In those 11 months, Democratic Governor Jared Polis has issued 300 COVID-19 executive orders. 300. Here's the thing, though. There's really only like 60 of them. The rest of the orders are just like, hey, keep doing that thing I mentioned in an earlier order. Executive orders might not be necessary once the state legislature returns next week. During a political forum today, politics guy Marshall Zellinger was able to ask the Democrats in charge at the Capitol how they feel about the governor doing their job for them.
Why have you allowed the governor to be the executive branch and the legislative branch for almost a year now?
No one planned to go into a year-long global pandemic the way that we found ourselves. The amount of change that had to go in place in order to handle this pandemic couldn't get done when we were not in. That had to get done even though we weren't in session.
If he started doing things like healthcare reform or major initiatives that he's been wanting to do with these emergency powers that he has in an emergency, that would be different. But I don't think anybody is really claiming that he's abusing his power. I think some people just disagree with some of the decisions he's made.
During this political forum with Colorado Politics and the Denver Gazette, co-moderator Joey Bunch asked the Republicans about the divide within their own party. Why? At least one Republican member of the state legislature was in Washington, D.C. on January 6th, and 21 Republican state lawmakers pushed for a December hearing on Colorado's election integrity. They provided no proof and heard testimony from former President Trump attorney Jenna Ellis before hearing from any county clerk directly involved in Colorado's election.
I think that we're way more unified than it might appear. Whatever small divisions we might have, there are core foundational beliefs that we hold as a body, as a group, that actually tie us together much more than anything splits us apart.
Nothing about being a state senator in Colorado has anything to do with going to Washington, D.C., or in fact, working with the White House or Congress. That's the federal government. Rather than talk about divisions with the former president or Congress, I want to give praise where it's due. I'm proud to work with Speaker Alec Garnett, and that's where I work. So I think the fissures that we have in our caucus are I think, non-existent.
I need to point out that Republican Representative Hugh McKean was indeed safe. It was a construction project at home, not anything he was in danger with. Kyle, there is a issue on both sides. The Democrats need to prove that they can legislate their own agenda and not necessarily what the governor has been doing for the last 11 months under the executive order power. And the Republicans do, you tell me if you think differently, the idea that there isn't a fissure, a division within the Republicans. I feel like there needs to be some sort of part of a speech coming up next week of something of, yeah, we all don't have the same thought process, and here's why that's okay, or here's how we're going to address that.
I mean, I give him credit for saying it, because there will be somebody out there who has not paid any attention to politics who will believe him, who will think that it's the truth, that there's not an enormous fissure in the Colorado Republican Party, but it's real. I mean, it's very real. And what a tough position for Colorado Republicans who are trying to redefine what their party stands for so that they can climb back into power, but they have virtually no power at the state capitol, Marshall.
No power, and in the Senate, it's really more for Senator Chris Holbert, because at least the divide between Democrats and Republicans in the Senate is much more narrow than it is in the House. But really, the power is strictly with the Democrats, and perhaps Governor Polis telling the Democrats, here's what I want on my desk. And if the Republicans are already divided, when they don't have the power in the first place, it'll be an interesting next few months at the state capitol.
Marshall Zellinger, whose commitment to wearing the glasses tie clip even when you can't see the bottom of his tie, admirable.